Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Tatiana Show. It is April 3rd, not the 1st. I'm sorry I missed all the opportunities to make some jokes with you this week, but I'm doing a lot of content.
SEOs to do that.
That was clever. I like that. So Josh, you look different from before, even though we're taping the episode on the same day. I've ruined the plan for people. I was like, I'm going to change and make it seem all fancy. But I'm not changing the truth. I have to tell them the truth. You look nice, though. I like your look. Josh has been getting a tan because he's been traveling, living up the crypto life. I, on the other hand, am staying at home. Pumping some iron, though.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to do this at the same time. This is called multitasking. I'm going to lift this weight, all 5 pounds. Okay, wait. Now we got to do the other side.
I can't believe you're still using a weight. Where's your shake weight?
Oh my God. I don't think that anybody serious can use a shake weight, but I think it does work. I have a trampoline though, and I've been holding these little 2 pound weights with me. And I go like this. See that precision right there?
For all those people on SoundCloud, she's punching us virtually. She's punching.
But in a precise way, like a female Rocky.
Yeah, right. So today
anyway.
We've got a champion today, another champion of the crypto space.
Indeed.
And we've got Travis from the the organizer of the Bitcoin meetup in San Francisco, one of the biggest and best, longest running, I'm pretty sure longest running as well, crypto meetups in the world along here in Berlin. How are you?
Doing good. Yeah, the meetup group, I think it started in 2010. Which is ancient times for the world in the world of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Wow, you're even more OG than I am by far.
Well, see, I wasn't running it back then, but the group is pretty OG. Yeah.
I did. Good. I was.
Really? How did you hear about it? Where was I during all this?
I actually one of the first events I went to, I believe you were performing at, Tatiana.
Oh, the one at San Francisco.
Yeah,
that was really nice. I like the San Francisco crew. It's a little bit too San Francisco, but other than that part of it, I really, really love going out there. We're gonna save the world.
No, it is really cool. I really dig the vibe in San Fran. You know, there is still this hippie vibe, and it crosses all barriers. And there is this change the world sort of vibe, and that's fantastic. You know, that's why I got into crypto. I did want to change the financial system, and even before that, I wanted. I was building alternative economy stuff before Satoshi released his white paper, because it really, for me, the root of all evil isn't money; it's how money's created and who's got control of that. And when you see a white paper released like Satoshi's and you read it and your jaw just drops and goes, oh my God, she's cracked it.
Yeah, one of the first things that got me really into Bitcoin was this video that Andreas Antonopoulos, like I had known about it, but I hadn't really, and I found the technology quite interesting, but I didn't really quite see the impact it could have socially until I saw this video that Andreas did. And it's not a great video. The sound quality is really terrible. There's a lot of noise in the background, but you can understand what he's trying to say. And there's definitely a religious mantra to it, and it's exciting, and it really, the idea of sort of taking control over this resource that's kind of controlled us for so long.
Are you able to come out to the event in Chicago, by the way?
No, I can't make it out to that one. I'm trying to travel more these days. I was just in New York a few months ago for Rare AF, which was rare.af, which is like the best URL ever. They said it stood for Art Festival. So yeah, Rare Art Festival, sure. And that was the first in-person digital art show that I'm aware of. Conference, I mean, there have been other digital art shows. First conference for these kinds of projects that I'm aware of. That was a lot of fun.
How did I not get looped into that? I would have liked to have been a part of it. I'm based here in New York.
It really? Oh, I didn't know that. Well, they're having another one coming up soon. It kind of all seemed to happen last minute. It actually started with a tweet. Joe Looney, the guy who runs Rare Pepe Wallet, he tweeted out, "Hey, we should do a conference." And 3 weeks later, there was a conference.
Wow. All right. Well, keep me in mind for the next one, because I would definitely like to come out, and I like to hang with my art people. So tell us a little bit about your background. How did you get involved in the SF meetup group? But then, you've been doing stuff with different art projects for a long time, and now you've sort of evolved into your own project, Curio Cards.
Yeah, about, I think it was like maybe not quite, but maybe about 4 years ago, there was something called the San Francisco Bitcoin Art Fair. And they had that over at 20 Mission, which is this place that used to host a lot of Bitcoin events, and helped out with that. And around that time, started going to the events a lot more often. Wasn't organizing it back then. Paige and Isabel were running the show then. And then about 2 years ago, at this point, I was now organizing the event. We did the Proof of Art, which was a Bitcoin art show that we did over at this place called Code and Canvas. And we do once a month, we do this thing called Proof of Drink, where we just kind of get together and drink and hang out and talk. So we use the same naming scheme there. And we were the first people actually to use that space to do an art show. And Dorian Nakamoto, this was around the same time that Newsweek had, outed the guy Dorian as Satoshi, which, he wasn't Satoshi, just a nice old man who liked trains.
He's still my favorite Satoshi, though.
Yeah, oh yeah, because he's the one who didn't want to be Satoshi, right? Something about like the king who doesn't want to be king is the best king, right? Well, Crypto Graffiti, who's an artist who helped me organize the event, a good friend, he knew Dorian because he did a portrait of him out of cut up credit cards that auctioned for quite well, and so they had become friends through that process. So he invited him out. He was at the art show as well, and so everyone wanted to get their picture with him. And I got photos of him helping to paint the walls at the gallery space. So while we were getting set up the day before. He's just a really nice guy. Oh, and somebody put him in an Augur shirt too, which was just brilliant marketing because everyone wanted their photo with him, and in every photo he's wearing this Augur shirt, and he didn't know what Augur was. So we did the art show, and then about a year later, decided to do something again. This is now a year ago. This is around April. Decided to do something again, and this time the idea came, well, let's try to do something online, something where we can kind of reach out to more people. So thought about it for a while and did Curio Cards as kind of an online art gallery, as it were. We got a couple of artists together that we liked, some of them who had presented at the show the year before, and some other ones who we just had heard about and knew, and had them create digital artwork. And then we would turn those digital artwork into kind of rare, unique digital objects by embedding them into Ethereum tokens. And we had about 30 of those, about 7 artists, about 30 pieces. And and now we're continuing on that path.
So a lot of people say, why do you need a blockchain? Why do you need a crypto for art? Can't I just copy the picture? And you can take a Rare Pepe, which is a card game, and just copy it for the picture. But the fact of the matter is, you have the rights to sell them, right? Is that what drew you to have that uniqueness within art in the digital art space?
Yeah, because that's a rare problem, right? I mean, you can't really have anything unique and digital at the same time. For years, that was the issue, right? I mean, that's what took down so much of the music industry and film industry, was just this idea that I can use Napster to copy music, copy movies, and they had to completely change how they structure, how they pay and how they charge because of that. But Bitcoin kind of showed, I don't want to say the word solution, but a different way of handling that idea, a way you actually can have a digital object that can't be copied or counterfeited or duplicated. I mean, every Bitcoin essentially is a collectible. There's only 21 million of them. You can break them up into smaller pieces, but it's just all it is a unique, rare object.
That's really true. Yeah. I was talking to someone the other day, and they said, "Oh yeah, but there's so many other cryptos now. How do you know Bitcoin's going to be value anything?" And I said to them that, look, first of all, Bitcoin was the very first. So people will want it because they'll go, I have a piece of the very first cryptocurrency ever invented.
You can't take that away from it.
No.
Yeah. You can release new features. You can have a new coin that's better, faster, smarter, better branding. Like, you can do anything you want, but you can't take away the fact that it was first. It's like, if I have a laptop that's like 5 years old, I can't give it away. Nobody wants it. It's a piece of crap. Mm-hmm. But an Apple One computer, handmade by Steve Wozniak, those things go for, $500,000, $1 million at auction.
Yeah.
And it's so true. Not a great computer, it's old and it's slow and you can't do anything with it, but people desperately want them and they'll pay a lot of money for a nice mint condition one.
Yeah. Yeah. So what brought you the idea of where did you draw the passion from to make collectible art?
Well, it's a big problem, right? For if you're an artist, you can't sell digital artwork really in any kind of meaningful way. You can do prints, you can if you're a digital artist, you can do if you ever go to like a Comic-Con convention, you'll see guys, they have stacks of prints, rare prints, like a 300 printing, and they'll sell those, and they do pretty good with that. But it doesn't really scale very well. You got to do it in person. You can't really do it online. And there's a lot of different people kind of trying to work on this. The ideas of using the digital rights management, create a paywall, a low resolution version of the photo, and you got to pay money to access the higher resolution version. And that just feels very restrictive. And plus these content providers, they take a big cut. It costs a lot of money to run that infrastructure. So if you're an artist releasing through that infrastructure, the same thing applies to musicians with streaming services. They'll take a huge percentage of your revenue. Whereas, Bitcoin showed us a way that we can do this where each individual person controls, each individual piece and decentralize it and break it out and just turn it into a unique digital object that I can sell to you, and now you have it. And then you can sell it to somebody else, and now they have it. And it's just person to person. And all you have to do is help people figure out how to turn their work into that digital object. There's still a bit of a learning curve there. So hopefully we can help people figure that out. And I also don't know the best way of doing it. We want to experiment and try new ways of putting it together. Yeah, in fact, the way we first did the curio cards, the first 30, at the time, there wasn't really a way of doing collectibles on Ethereum. Having a set of different, called non-fungible collectibles, where each one is unique and different. And so we used the standard tokens that you use to create ICOs, and we embedded artwork inside the token, made a limited run of them, and made them non-divisible. And then every time we wanted to release a new painting, we had to create a whole new token. And this was using ERC20 tokens, the same tokens you use for any ICO. Now there's something called ERC721, which is actually a token designed specifically for this purpose. And you can just kind of keep issuing new tokens, and each one's unique and special and different. And if you look at the Ethereum improvement proposal that first announced 721, the curio cards is mentioned down at the bottom under the backwards compatibility section. That's kind of an example of why this is needed, because the technology didn't exist when we first tried it. But now we have 721, and it's an excellent improvement, and we're switching over to it.
Wow.
So a lot of experimentation, yeah.
Well, I think the experimentation can be problematic sometimes. We made Tatiana coin, and now because Counterparty was built on Bitcoin, and at the time it was the best option. It was. I mean, we really thought really long and hard about who's going to be the partner for that. But now because Counterparty started Bitcoin transactions are high. Sometimes they're higher than the Tatiana coin itself. So I don't know, like when we did the token.fm project and Tokenly in general, the goal is to be blockchain agnostic. Do you ever worry that what you're choosing becomes out of date?
Oh, absolutely. Because you're right about Counterparty. In fact, when we started, Pepe Cash has had a lot of advantages. They had exchanges. Now we're finally starting to get some decentralized token exchanges on Ethereum, but they're very new. They didn't exist last year. Whereas, Counterparty had them. They had wallets. They had a ton of open source software that you could use. And Ethereum, like when we first got it started, it didn't even have error codes yet. I mean, it was still being developed, and it just kind of barely worked. And there's always a chance that it may not scale the right way, or it has a lot of challenges. I think the idea is that we can just kind of keep hopping along to whatever works best. At a certain point, you just gotta just try something and put it out and do it. And you even have people who are trying to switch Pepe over to Ethereum right now. And there's nothing stopping a project from doing that, from moving between platforms, as long as the community agrees that this is the new version of the asset. It could be a hard fork if they don't agree, or it could be a non-contentious fork if everybody agrees. Okay, we're over here now. What was a Pepe card on Counterparty is now a Pepe on Ethereum, or what was a curio card on Ethereum is now a curio on, some fork of Ethereum or some new project, or maybe we fork Ethereum ourselves because we have to. Who knows? I'm not making any direct claims there, but I think that flexibility is allowed, because it really just comes down to the people believe that this is the asset. There's this is this where it exists now, and this is where it is. Yeah.
Do you think, you know, coming from the economic side of things, I find it fascinating because you have something that can be infinitely copyable, like a piece of digital art, and now you have the ability to have the rights to sell that art. That's what you've got. It's not to look at it because everyone can look at it, but you have the right to then sell that on. It's still a very experimental stage in this whole evolution of allowing digital collectibles. I'd be interested to see how the market plays out. How have you seen the market playing out over the time that you've been working in this field? Is there still a buying pressure, even though someone can see a piece of art without owning the digital right?
That's a good question.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was kind of the question that started the whole thing. We had asked ourselves, will people make that kind of intellectual leap? Will they decide that looking at the painting or looking at the image isn't what matters? It's actually owning the token itself. I like the way you worded that about how it's more right than it is ownership. You know, you have the right to sell it because anybody can look at it, which I think is kind of cool. You don't have to hide the image.
Yeah.
I always think I think of Bitcoin the same way. It's like, I don't have the Bitcoin. I just have the control over the Bitcoin. I have the right to move the Bitcoin. That's what the key gives me, right? I don't actually hold it in my hands. I just have the rights to it. So you look at other projects that have been around a bit longer, like Pepe Cash, or gosh, there's a whole bunch of them now. And if anything, the longer a project, the rarer and older a card is, the more value it seems to get. When it's brand new, you don't really know yet what the cultures around it's going to be, because each one's almost like a little tiny mini community. I'll give you an example. There was one of Pepe's I really like. It's called DJ Pepe, and he's got a SoundCloud where he's always kind of curating the music on it, and you need to have the card to have access to the SoundCloud.
Wow.
And and so you could have the card for a little while and, you know, listen to some songs, but if you pass the card on to somebody else, you don't have access anymore. And, you know, you have to kind of tell yourself, well, what is that worth to you, right? You'll figure that on your own. But it's kind of created this, at first it was just a funny idea, but now there's a whole community around it. There are people who follow DJ Pepe on Twitter, and at Rare AF, he was interviewed on the panel. They had a cardboard cutout of him. The guy who actually is DJ Pepe, he had a microphone behind the stage, and they put this cardboard cutout on the stage, and people would ask the cardboard cutout questions, and they respected what the cardboard cutout had to say. And, you know, that didn't happen overnight. That takes time for him to develop a following and kind of get that respect and create a culture around his artwork and his cards.
That's great. I think the utility as well of something like CryptoKitties, which was the ability to make a digital collectible also mate with another digital collectible to create a new digital collectible. That was also a very, very cool evolution of digital art.
Clever idea.
They're literally evolving by breeding.
It's such a clever idea.
It's
and then you
so
have
crazy.
Projects like kitty hats, where they create add-ons for your kitty. So you can get like cats and monocles and mustaches. And it's a separate project, I believe. I don't even think it was made by the CryptoKitty people.
That's
and
even
it just
better.
showed, because you can add on to these assets. It's your kitty. You can do whatever you want with it. They couldn't stop you if they wanted to. And that shows the kitties then became more valuable once that service existed, because it took time. It takes a bit of time for that community to develop, and the interest in the use cases and games and, you know, different types of collecting and what is the rare kind of kitty. It kind of takes time to realize, oh, this is actually uncommon, this particular attribute.
I remember when I first got into Bitcoin, and I was sitting at the meetup here at Room 77 and talking, saying, you know, is this the answer to copyright protection of software as well? Because in some way, you could have the software kind of like the shareware system back in the day, where everyone had access to it, but it wasn't everything. You could, if you had the token, you can now sell that. I don't know if it would even work, but it's playing on the edge. It's still on the edge of art and creativity and having something that is worth something, but having that right to sell it on.
So I really like the Patreon model. the idea of supporting the creator directly. And you see this in open source software. There are actually a couple of well-known open source developers on Patreon, and people who just, hey, I like your software, I like using it, but there's no way for me to, it's free software, so I'll pay you X amount, and they kind of create their own subscription. There are limits to what that can do. I think it's an amazing platform, but I believe it has kind of the tragedy of commons issue where, like, well, someone else will say, hey, I don't have to do that because somebody else will. And clearly that's overcome because people just love the artist so much. They love the creator. They love what they do. And so they do contribute to these things. You see Patreon accounts, people are contributing. Yeah. But it comes down to that relationship. If you can give it all, like, what am I getting in return, right? People like that. So I think the really successful Patreon accounts are ones where you have access to a lot of kind of really cool exclusive content, or a way of communicating with the creator directly, a way of interacting with the creator directly. And I could see a token system similar to like what Curio Cards or Kitties is doing, being very helpful for that, because it could be, instead of just donating money, you're purchasing something. You're purchasing some unique object that they're creating, that they're interacting with. Yeah, I don't know how you do that with software, but it could just be that they're open source developer that you really like, and they create a token that kind of represents their work. And
right, but how do you get to that point, right? So how do you get to the point where people know about you in order enough to like you? We learned a lot of lessons with Tatiana Coin, and one of them is that unless you have a lot of friends that want to give you money, it doesn't really matter how good your music is. Nobody's gonna, you're not gonna ever be able to get out the door. And that sort of bugs me a little bit about when people talk about, registration of your work and stuff like that. I mean, yeah, that's important in one way, but I think a lot of artists don't ever even get to register their work because they never even get to kind of foster that. So what we were thinking is offering, well, like if you could basically have people, of course, we're not allowed to say that. And we'd never intended to have Tatiana Coin be something where, you're going to make millions of dollars off it. That was never the intention, right? So I don't know, like I would love to, though, offer investors a way of investing in artists. Say, okay, we've got a pool of this 100 artists, and then maybe you do some sort of contest, but like opening up that to people who are financially incentivized, and not, look, what if I live in the ghetto, right? And all my friends are broke or something like that. Even if they think, I'm the king of the ghetto, it's not going to make any difference in my career raising ability if nobody around me has money. But maybe we can allow some of that investment. I don't know. I mean, the average person, if they've got an extra $50 a month, instead of buying a crypto something, they might be more interested in buying, a piece of the artist. I would find that way more interesting if I were trying to make a little bit extra money. Maybe you don't make that much money off of it, though, because most artists, they don't succeed. And what is success?
And Patreon definitely doesn't promise any kind of return on investment. It's more what you can get supporting artists you love, and what they create. Then there's like, hey, cool, I have access to what they create, but there's not a financial relationship there.
But don't you then have to like come up with a bunch of extra crap for people that really isn't your best work? And that's sort of annoying. I have a demo that I did the other day, and I'm going to be sharing that with people, and I'll probably share it with my Tatiana Coin people, but as like an exclusive at first. But I don't know. I don't really find myself with so much extra time to have a bunch of time to make extra content. It seems like it becomes a little bit burdensome for the artist, but it becomes something where you opt in or opt out at the same time, right? Like some artists want to provide more. Maybe if you're hot stuff, you don't need to provide more. A little bit of,
exactly.
So I don't know.
And a model that I've seen that's really interesting too is maybe just giving access to the process. So not creating more work, but people who could then see into your process, and they see unfinished work.
Okay, but
being finished. Yeah.
Sure. Like I would love to do that, except then I have to hire a videographer to follow me around when I go to the recording studio. So that's like another expense.
Yeah.
And I would love to do that. When we did my last album, we have video of that content. I still need to put it out, because I didn't have enough money to pay the editor to go through it and to put it together. Right. So, I mean, and I'm arguably in a better position than a lot of other artists, right? I had support for Tatiana Coin. We funded my first record. I raised some money for the second thing, but it's not enough. So I love all these innovations. I just want to see more opportunities and less government interference. I was listening to that Wyoming episode on Let's Talk Bitcoin, and Caitlin and her cohorts in Wyoming are sort of trailblazing over there. But it's a real drag to try and not violate law when trying to make, these funny, collectible, weird things that aren't a security, but have value and potentially, because of their rarity, they can appreciate just like any other rare item. So I don't know. It's a wild west right now.
Go to prison. Yeah, that's
no, I don't want to go to prison. And that's the thing. Like, we can't even launch our token.fm because we might get in trouble. I mean, this is ridiculous. This is supposed to be
so dumb. It's the dumbest thing. And it's really throwing a brain drain out of the States. Like, we're seeing a lot of blockchain developers coming to Europe because of it all.
Yeah, you're going to see a lot of innovation moving places where the law is clearer or less obtuse anyways. And, because, if you have a really cool idea but you're afraid of what will happen when you release it, that's not going to be a good environment for innovation.
Yeah. So with curio cards, how does it work? What if someone wants to start getting into it or start understanding it further? What happens? You go onto the website, curio.cards, and what happens then?
So the first 30 cards we created, it was me and Crypto Graffiti essentially picking out people that we liked. And we started with a couple of crypto artists that we knew. Then there were other people who kind of showed up, once we were releasing the cards, like Robeck was one of the guys who just kind of showed up in our Telegram one day and we liked his artwork. So we picked him. And then two of the artists, they weren't even involved in crypto at all. Their artwork has something to do with crypto. They were just regular artists. But that didn't really scale very well, right? Because it was just us picking people. Like, why am I in charge of this? So and this, I think it kind of goes back to what Tatiana was saying as well, which it comes down to discoverability. It comes down to how do you get people to find out about you? How do you get people to find out about your work? And if I'm this gatekeeper and I have to know you and think you're a cool person, that's not exactly solving anything, is it? So we were focused on getting the technology figured out with the first 30. And now what we're focused on is that curation issue, that discoverability issue. So I don't want to pick the artists anymore. We want to let other people vote on who gets created. So we have an open process right now. If you go on curio.cards, there's a link at the top that says community site, and that'll take you to where people are submitting their own artwork. And it's just a form that I put together, and you can see a bunch of really cool art people have already submitted. And what's going to happen is we're gathering all that together. We're gathering together all the artist information, and we're building a voting website. And people would go on the site and they would vote by burning Ethereum, by sacrificing Ethereum to the art gods for whatever they like best. So there's trying to remove incentives and ways of gaming the system there. And it's not a perfect tool because value is being destroyed. And I'd much rather see that money go to the artist. And we're going to make some improvements and figure out ways of doing that. But this works, it's quick, it's easy, and we're going to start voting on the new artwork. So whatever cards win the vote, we create.
How do we get fans to like this stuff? Does it have to be personality driven by the fame of the artist, right? First of all, I think we need the tools, right, to make it really nice and easy for the average person to do it. But, people aren't going to say, oh, I want this collectible card if no one else is collecting them. I mean, it's nice to be a little bit ahead of the curve, but at some point we got to get everybody to catch up. So
I see kind of two main things that would drive value: looking at the cards we've already done, and as well as just interacting with the community so far. And part of that is just, hey, it's crypto, that's neat, right? And people just want it because it's crypto and that's interesting. The main driver of value right now, it's the artist's existing fans sort of following them to the platform. People will say like, oh, I like what this guy does, and this is a really kind of a neat new way for me to own their work that they're experimenting with, and I want to support that. That then turning into something larger, where like the card itself is just considered very valuable. People want it, they crave it, they desire it. That's sort of like that's the DJ Pepe story, right? That takes time. They have to develop a community around the artwork, develop kind of a culture and a cachet around how cool and interesting it is.
Yeah. When you collect a card, do you actually get the high res version of the artwork?
So if you go on the site and right click on any of the cards and say, open a new tab, the image, the high resolution picture is right there. We don't hide that or keep that away. Really? And the token that you buy, it has the highest resolution image, that the artist gives us, turned into an IPFS hash embedded inside the card. So I kind of like that. I like that the artwork isn't hidden or tucked away. What you're getting is the ability to sort of trade in ownership of that artwork.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
What
also
if
to
you want it?
cryptographically prove that you're an original owner. You know, I can say, you know, here's a QR code and you scan it and I've signed it and I can prove that I own this artwork, not just that I have the image and I printed it out on the wall, but you can actually have a little QR code in the corner or an RFID tag in the frame or something, and you can scan it with an app and verified ownership, which is a really cool feature.
Yeah, it's very,
So
very...
is the artist setting the license as to how you could use it with the card itself, or no?
So the artists, they can decide how many are created, and obviously they decide on what the image is as well. But once they sell the print to somebody, it kind of works the same way as selling physical prints. If somebody wants to take that print and frame it and put it on their wall, you know, they can. In terms of copyright protection laws around, like, I'm going to then use that artwork in something that's going to make money, or I'm going to use that artwork in my video game or my video or my movie, the law applies the same way as physical prints. If I buy a physical print, I don't own the right to use that artwork. I just own that print. And that's all very well established law. We're not trying to invent new digital artwork law around that. And I like to just think of it as a digital print.
When I go on the website as well, there's a tab there for your Guerrilla wallet. How does that all fit in? Is that where you check out your cards or the collectibles that you do have?
So when we first set this up, what we did was, there's a website called My Ether Wallet, which is a very common way with Ethereum to hold in all the different tokens that are created, all the different RC20 tokens. So we just forked that wallet and we kind of hard coded in the cards themselves. What we're working on now is the new version of that, and that's going to be a MetaMask wallet where you'll actually be able to like see and interact with and move the cards around. The Guerrilla wallet that's on the site right now, it lets you trade and send and receive the cards, and then there's also the gallery, which is where you can go and see your cards. So what we're working on right now is to combine those two together into one thing, and that's going to be the MetaMask wallet, sort of similar to how CryptoKitties works.
It's really cool. And the artists themselves, if you're an artist out there, you log into the community site and submit your work. I know you mentioned it before quickly, but
you just go on the forum and submit your work. And we've already closed submissions for the first vote. We right now are just talking with all the artists who've already submitted, and we're getting all their information together for the first vote, which should happen pretty soon. And once the first vote starts, then we'll start collecting art for the second vote and the third vote, and it'll just be kind of every couple of weeks or every week or so, we'll do a new vote for more cards. Yeah, so if you're an artist, that's the easiest way to get started. Just submit your artwork and start talking and sharing what your ideas are. And yeah, and as an artist, we'll walk through the whole process. So you submit your artwork, and it goes into a vote, and then the vote happens, and you say, hey, everybody vote for my artwork, and say you win the vote. What happens then is we take your artwork and we turn it into a card. So we embed it inside of a rare, unique digital object, and we handle all the technical side for that, of how to create the digital asset, how to create the tokens, how to integrate it with the wallet, auction houses, etc. We'll handle all of that. That's kind of a big, very important thing. Is I think artists, we need artists, and artists need us, and this is how we can help them out. So then the cards get created. We then put them into a vending machine. And a vending machine is a bit of Ethereum smart contract where it holds the cards. You send money to the machine, and the cards come out. So then it's kind of like a little storefront that anybody can then buy the card from. And the Ethereum that goes to the machine goes directly to the artist. We don't take a cut of that. So it just sells the cards to them like a little digital store existing as a smart contract. And then there's a secondary market there, which is, there are a couple of auction houses that are starting to come out, and this is also a very new thing in Ethereum. These rare collectible auction houses are finally starting to get developed. There's one called OpenSea. There's another one called Rarebits, and we'll be partnering with them for the new cards as well.
That's super cool. I can imagine when I'm in VR, I've got a HTC Vive, and I put on my Vive, and I've got this little place that I go to, which is my little house. And I chill out, and I sometimes have friends over in VR that are living overseas. It'd be great to have some rare collectibles up on the walls.
Oh yeah, that'd be really cool.
And to be able to sell them on.
I have Google Daydream, and they have that museum VR environment on that, where you can kind of look at, you know, beautiful artwork on hanging on your wall, and then having a room like that in your virtual house would be really cool.
Yeah, yeah.
And you know, with little check marks, you know, if they look at the information to say like he's a verified owner of this artwork.
Yeah, I mean that's just so it's so future forward, and it's just wonderful to see that people are, you know, like yourselves are really taking on that challenge, because a lot of people go, oh wait, it's digital, it's, you know, and wouldn't really see the big picture. So it's really cool.
Well, that's how we share things nowadays, is digitally. You know, the idea that I want to buy a physical piece of artwork and put it on my wall to share it that way, or a binder full of Pokemon cards, something like that, right? There's a lot of limitations to that. There's the cost of storage, large piece of artwork. There's the cost of transport. There's the cost of insurance, the cost of, you know, all the costs associated with having that physical piece on your limited wall space. But if I have, you know, there's cool things that I have online, I share them on Facebook, I share them on Twitter, I share them digitally.
Yeah. And there are a lot of people that say, oh, it'll never sort of, you know, why I wouldn't buy one. Imagine if you owned that, you know, let's take a big name like Banksy or something, like a digital Banksy work, and you had that cryptographic proof. Can't you see, folks, that actually has value because you have the ability to sell that on?
Yeah, it's very cool. And there was even at Rare AF, they did a live auction of some CryptoKitties and some Rare Pepes. And the Homer Pepe, there was only one of them. It went for $39,000 at live auction. And then there was a CryptoKitty as well that went for a couple $1,000s, and the proceeds went to SPCA.
Fantastic.
I like that. It's like a double whammy, because then you've got all the nice PR for crypto.
Exactly.
Cool. All right. Well, I don't know. Any other questions here? I feel like we've unwrapped a lot. We've been on an art kick lately on this show. I like it. I want to see more artists getting involved. Are you coming out to Consensus?
I'm not sure yet. I hope I can make it. Yeah.
Okay. I'm pretty much I'm pretty sure I'm going to throw a party, so we'll have to talk about that a little later. But cool. So thanks so much for joining us. Is there any place that people can connect with you specifically? Give us all your socials and how people can connect. Sure.
So there's obviously the website Guerrilla.cards, and if you want to follow me on Twitter, it's Travis4Mayor, and you know, there's also my Curio Cards at my Curio Cards, and those are probably the two best places to start.
Awesome.
And we have a Telegram room and a Discord room as well.
All right. Well, we'll have to go and hang with you in some of those chats there. Thanks so much, Travis, for coming on. Josh, anything to say before we get off the show?
Well, if anyone who wants to get rid of filthy fiat and they want to trade in and out of crypto and gold instead and stay away from the banking system, then they can on vaultoro.com. That's Vault as in a gold vault, and Oro as in Spanish for gold. And it's fully insured and fully audited by BDO International. So that's really cool. And Tatiana's crypto media hub is also.
I was like waiting to see if you're going to remember the name of my company.
Of course, I remember.
He was like crypto media. Yes, Crypto Media Hub. Come hang with us if you want to get the word out about your project. And if you have a product or a service that fits our show, you can reach out to us for sponsorship opportunities at dave@btcmedia.org. Thanks, everybody, for coming and hanging out. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. And we'll see you very soon. Bye, everybody.
Bye.